show you, how I review the logs, and I explained to you really what is the best way to go forward with it. Before we jump in, is everybody comfortable with kind of the flow in Welcome, like in the workflows, the flow of information? Or is that something that will be a good start just to make sure everybody's aligned?
I personally think, yeah, sorry, go ahead. Who was
no, sorry, as in, sorry, how the integrations are working, and what is transferring that data to what, and what's the whole goal of each of the steps?
Right. My personal thoughts are like, I think we are doing okay. We are in a good place. Okay. If we just take a look at, say, for example, the tray log step URL, I think most of the necessary information are already in there. Obviously, we lack experience when it comes to, say, for example, deciphering what those exact set of details are in cases. Like one example could be sometimes we receive multiple notifications for maybe one particular step. It might have been completed, but initially we might get confused as to why we are receiving two notifications with, say, for example, different messaging. And then there are cases where, say, for example, the title of the step might say Viva, but then like in the notification panel or something like that, we can maybe see it might be linked to some other system as well. So it's all these intricacies. Like, I think if we can at least cover the fundamentals, then obviously if we get totally stuck, we can always reach out to you. But I think other than that, we should be sorted or covered.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll take those 4 examples I have, and we can go through it.
Right.
So those were examples that came through throughout the week. And so on this one, first issue that we see, which is quite a typical one, to be fair, is this one, which shows that the sub-step is already completed.
Right.
This happens for a couple of reasons. So here on the Sitecore side, so we see we're on the Sitecore workflow. So there will be a small difference when we talk about Sitecore workflow. If this is just an asset, Sitecore will not be involved. If we talk about web pages, then there will be Sitecore involved, build of the page. Okay. And when we talk about Sitecore, there is an additional integration that is in place, which is the Sitecore integration. And the way it works, so if we look at this workflow, some data is provided, and then really via an external step, the information is sent to Sitecore, and there is an expectation that on the Sitecore side, someone will create the page with all the required information. And when they change the status in Sitecore, it will automatically fire a webhook that will then be picked up by Trey, and then will automatically push the information back into Welcome. So that's the information that we see here. Right. As soon as this is done, and some of the information is provided here, like the Sitecore item ID, that's really like the goal of this step here, it will automatically close that step. The issue in that specific use case here is that sometimes a user that can be not long after they first completed the step, or it can be like a long time after, may make a change on the Sitecore side, which will also trigger the webhook to fire. Right. And on the Sitecore side, the reference that they have is this external step ID. Right. So it will try to update the data again. And as it has been completed already, our API does not allow it.
Right. Niels, quick question. So like, say, for example, if it would have been like a WordPress publishing, then when we make a change, we have that option to sync those changes, right? So if they, so I believe like the way the system is structured, if I make a change in Sitecore, then does that like automatically sync on its own, or do we have to click, say, for example, a sync button from the CMP or something like that?
So the way they have configured it, because I don't have full visibility on how this was set up, but my understanding is that this is based on the status. That okay. They have like type of a workflow on their side where the page goes from draft to in review, etc. Right. And every time that there is a change in status, this is when there will be a webhook fired.
Right. Yeah. So
and yeah.
So for the webhook, I think, are you referring to like the topmost entry of this particular puzzle, I could say? Yeah. Like, is that how the webhook gets fired?
So here, yeah. So this is received from Sitecore.
Okay.
So here we're receiving it.
Right. Oh, okay. Okay. Got it. Okay. All right.
And so it passes all the information from Sitecore.
Right.
And then based on this information, it follows the process created in Tray.
Got it. Okay. Sounds good.
So that one, and in general, anytime you see something that says substep is already completed, it's often because either this for Sitecore, the usual cases are Sitecore in this one. You also have this. So if I go back here, when we get to, okay, they don't have the Viva step here, but for assets where you have the push to Viva.
Right. For approval. Right.
Yeah, approval step, exactly. So it's push to Viva. This is like kind of the handoff. So the user is supposed to carry on in Viva, and we kind of stay in a waiting state.
Right.
Then the user will do what they have to do in Viva. When the file is approved, it will come back to welcome, and it will automatically close the step.
Right.
If for any reason they make some changes as well on the Viva side, that might happen as well. I think it's not as common with Viva, it's mostly with Sitecore. But the principle is the same, is that the trigger is fired when the step has been closed already.
Okay.
And we have also, it happens as well if we have a workflow, even if we have like the placeholder.
Right.
If the user starts the step and clicks on sync, like after 5 or 10 seconds.
Right.
It will trigger a second workflow trying to create a placeholder as well.
Right.
And as this is kind of those two workflows are running in parallel, when the first one finishes, it will provide all the information in welcome, and then it will close the step. And when the second workflow gets to the end, it will try to do the same thing, but it won't be able to actually close the step because the step is already closed from the previous workflow that was run.
Right. Got it.
So usually those are not like big issues. So this is not like platform is broken or like, it's more like a user action that was done at the time that it shouldn't have been done.
Got it.
So we tried as much as possible to eliminate those occurrences via the integration we've done. There's still a few that we're not able to capture. And so that's usually how they will display or, you receive notification on your side.
Right. So one last question from my side, Nils. So say, for example, I'm in a like typical basic workflow step within our platform. And the next step is an external step. So I'm the assignee of step 1. If I complete it, then whoever is the assignee of the external step, do they have to explicitly complete the step, or like you mentioned, it just gets processed on its own and then it closes itself out? Like, what do we have to do?
Yeah, good question. So by default, as soon as the external step becomes active, the webhook is automatically triggered.
Oh, okay. Amazing. Okay.
So there's no need for the user to click sync, basically.
Okay.
But I think this is where there's like a gap in knowledge. Like some of the users will go into step 2, and instead of waiting for the message to start appearing, they will straight away click on sync.
Right. Yeah.
To trigger a second execution in parallel, which is an issue.
Right.
So I think now we have released something that says like for the as soon as we enter a step, the sync button will still be visible and the user can click on it. But within the first, I think it's 15 or 20 seconds, the click will actually not do anything because we know that it has been triggered already.
Right. Okay.
But triggers automatically, and based on the tray integration, there's 2 use cases. It's either like if we have a placeholder creation in Viva, this is meant to be no action needed from anyone. So we just send information to Viva, create the placeholder, retrieve the response, so like the ID of the placeholder, etc. bring it back into welcome and automatically close the step. So no action needed.
Right.
There's other use cases like the approval or this cycle, build the page, where this is more of a handoff. We pass information and then work needs to happen on cycle or Viva. And we're really waiting for cycle or Viva to send another webhook to indicate, okay, the work is done on that side. I hand it back off to welcome.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yep. This is one heck of a intricate workflow and process.
Yeah, there's multiple workflows. So here, this is really what you have here. Yeah. And so cycle, I build a cycle page, I publish it. Both of them are kind of handoffs. There's something that needs to happen in cycle for it to trigger the closure of the step automatically.
Gotcha.
So if I take the next one, let's see what we have. So next one, opening this. So by default, I usually just check here at the top what kind of workflow we're in. Because ultimately you have issues that are happening in a Viva workflow, a widen workflow, like most of the time,
right,
or a cycle workflow. That's usually where issues are happening. And here, this is SP receiver.
Okay. Yeah, right. This is something that I think we haven't done yet. Like access that particular panel and look into like the workflow that might be linked to their messaging that we receive. We just like click on the URL and like whenever we get redirected to this particular section or page, we just go through all the details. But I think we can add one more step where we can just look into ensuring whether we are looking at the right workflow or not.
I mean, it will take you straight to where the issue is, but I think this is more going to give you an idea of
right,
what the issue may be linked to. So here, SPRD, so PRD is production,
right,
S is Sidecore,
right,
and you have also like Viva, like VPRD, which is Viva production, and you have WPRD, which is widen production. So usually, any flow that fails that is linked to widen should have WPRD, cycle will have SPRD, and Viva will have VPRD. Okay. And then here, one thing that I would say in general, so here we've got the issue, but you've got a lot of good information towards the top.
right.
If you look at the webhook, you'll be able to see this. So
right.
if you look into external work, you've got the external system, which is the cycle publish. So that's really what we see here. Here.
Right. Yeah, yeah. You're correct.
So which would tell you exactly at what step the error happened in a workflow.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
So here we know this is a cycle publish step. We have an issue. And then if I scroll down and I click here, this is calling an external workflow. So it's literally running through that series of steps, and then it's calling another workflow to perform an action. And here what it tells us is that we are looking to pass data that is actually not available.
Okay.
And so the best way to see this is like here it just says the reference. There is all the steps. What we are looking into is more this, the Viva one. You will see this is the step before Viva one.
Right.
So I will just go back one level, trying to figure out, and if I see what is missing here as well, that it says that we're missing data ID.
In property.
Yeah. So if I come here and I open to see what we receive, see it says we retrieved successfully the information, but the size is zero, which means that we actually retrieved no results.
Right.
So the data is empty. So then it's a matter of figuring out why is it empty. And we can see here the requests that we are making is, and you wouldn't be able to know, but here when we do like the title is a good example of what we're trying to do is just get the document in Viva based on the document ID.
Okay.
And so here, that's why we are saying that we want the ID, the name, where the document number is this. So that's the doc ID.
Right.
And so what it means is that if we look at the task, this is the doc ID that we have in the task in welcome.
Yeah, but
And
it's
so
not. Yeah, it's not visible on the other side, right?
Correct. That's it. That means in Viva, when we search with this, it doesn't return any results. So that means it looks like this is a wrong ID.
Right.
That being said, so this is really like the root cause why this is failing, but this is something that should have been picked up by the development team and there should have been like a graceful exit, which seems they don't have. But this is not really your problem. On your side, really the root cause is it looks like the document number is not available in Viva.
Right. I think
which is why it's crashing.
Yeah, we probably did receive a ticket on this earlier with the exact messaging, but like we didn't know as to like what additional information we should share when we are writing down, say for example, the root cause or like the resolution section. So I think from now on, we can just like maybe include the ID number and let them know that, you know, even though it's appearing in the welcome platform, our checks indicate that it might not be there on the Viva side of things. So like, what do you think? Is this okay?
Yeah, I think it would be good because most errors that will happen, it's not really much you can do on your side. It's more, you know, figuring out what is the root cause. So I don't think there's anything really on the welcome side that needs to be changed.
Right.
So I think that would be good just to say it looks like the document number is not available in Viva.
Gotcha. Guys, any questions?
So, hi Niels, hi Rubai. So I just wanted to ask, like, if there is any kind of failure in the process, like in Viva, on Viva or site code, where will we be able to see the error? Like, will it appear on the workflow, on the step?
It is, yeah. So, I mean, you would receive, you know, via the alerting system, the ticket. So you will create a Zendesk ticket and you should have this trail link that is provided. And when you click on it, this is exactly where you will land. And you will see anything that is in red is like what has been the failure. So that's the exact connector that failed to return the right answer. And so this is where you would see what the issue is. Was it your question?
What I was saying, like, where will we see the exact issue? Like, what's the error actually? What's the error? What's the error? Where will I see the error? Like, is it on the tray interface, or like will we be able to see that on the workflow, on the CMP workflow?
No. So you wouldn't see it on the CMP workflow because
Okay.
what we have put in place really is like there's some errors that are being caught by the system, which we say, you know, for example, here this is a cycle workflow, but if we went the Viva workflow and the job ID, so the document ID was wrong, we will catch it automatically, and we will actually send a message to the user in welcome to say, check your document number, it's incorrect, it doesn't exist in Viva. But as such, you would not receive a Zendesk ticket because it's been managed through the integration.
Right.
What you receive through Zendesk is only scenarios that are not covered by the integration.
Right.
So, yeah. And so in this case, the integration didn't take into account that if the ID is wrong, they should send a message. So it just tries to carry on and obviously doesn't work because it doesn't exist.
Okay.
So that's when you receive a message. So anything that is not managed via the integration, you receive a message as an alert. And that means that most of the time this is, you have to go in the trail logs to identify really what is the root cause. And then you'll be able to double check in the task that this is indeed what you have in there.
Right.
Right.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, so that was for this one, which is really, we've got missing data. So that's something that should have been covered, which has not. So it's just a matter of raising it to them. And I guess they will fix it in the future. So, it doesn't raise ticket anymore. If I go into the next one, next example. Again, same, you would have received this via Zendesk tickets. And when you click on the link, you get straight here. Just give it a second to load. Okay, so here we're on the Viva and receiver. That's the main workflow for placeholder creation in Viva and also approval in Viva. And so here, if I look down the issues, a success response. And here, if we look at what we receive here, you just tell the child workflow. Sorry, my laptop is a bit slow, but basically the child workflow didn't finish.
Right.
So here, this one is a bit more complicated because that means we have to go to the other workflow to figure out exactly what happened. And so my laptop, this is a very heavy workflow, so I think it's a bit slow to run.
Yeah. I actually received this exact message earlier last night. I think Tausif and Bakhtiar were with me as well, like where we noticed this timeout of.
Yeah, unable to. I mean, it's trying to load this on the right, which is very heavy. I mean, you don't really use it, but sometimes it might block you from actually seeing the debug, which is annoying.
Right.
So here, what it says is that at this step, any like success response is when we building the status that we get in the external steps. So if I come here with the status that we see here, this is always built through an external workflow in Tray, which is called success response.
Okay.
And we literally just pass the information that you see in that status here.
Right.
And so what happened here is that we went through the whole process. We send the information for the status to be updated. And for some reason, we didn't receive feedback from that other workflow. So we don't know if it completed successfully or not. So usually that means it didn't. And the one thing I did here is probably one of the hardest one is I go to VPRD and they were V02. So actually, let me restart just to make sure. This is where we are right now. So I would just take the beginning of this, VPRD V02.
Right.
And it will give me all the other workflows that are linked to this.
Right.
And so any messaging to update the status will go through this prepare in-app messaging.
Okay.
So it's not as easy, this one, because it's a bit more intricate. But before I click on this, I think it's good to read here. So at the bottom here, we can see that this was triggered at the date and time I have here, 9/9/14/10. So I'm just going to go here, keeping in mind the 9/9/14/10. So now I'm in my other workflow. If I go to 9/9/14/10, I should, there we go. So 9/9/14/10 with in red.
Right. Click here.
And here we have the reason why.
Oh, okay.
So we're basically trying to patch again the status, but the patch is only possible if the external step is open. And here we can see that the step was actually completed already.
Okay. Right.
Okay. And so after that is like trying to figure out why this is the case. So I can't go back. check this. I think I have the task here. One thing that you can do as well, this is when, like the time that we see here in tray can also be used to figure out what happened with the history in the task. So here I should have somewhere. No, don't have There's information passed. Yeah, so here know as well that, when you've got those external links, when you say API welcomesoftware.com, you've got the tasks /. This is, so you don't have like the task ID as such, but this is the one that you can use in the browser. So that's a good way to get quickly to the task that is linked to it, which is this one. And then you can look in the history. It was like 9, 10, 14, 10. So that would be 2 p.m. 10. And we can see, yeah. So we can see here that she has basically, that's the placeholder step, and she has synced it. So that's exactly what we're talking about earlier on.
Right.
Where she completed the previous step at 2:10.
Right.
And then automatically trigger the next, and then she straight away synced it again, creating two executions at the same time.
Right.
And so if I come back here, actually, we should see, yeah, that this one is literally just before it by 12 seconds. So if I look here, yeah, so we can see this is the same task.
Right.
So that's the root cause. She just synced the step.
Right. Niels, quick question. So that other message, sorry, I might have lost track of like some of the elements here, but that other message where like it was written like something that is linked to the child workflow. So like the basis of all of this is basically Marcy not only like completed that particular step, but then within a matter of seconds, she ended up syncing that step. So
Correct.
that ended up creating like two separate executions, right?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, you are right. This one is a bit more complex. So just wanted to make sure we got that clarified.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's just a bit more complex because the issue happens in an external workflow instead of the one where.
Right.
So actually, you might have received 2 Zendesk tickets for that. I'm just thinking. Because you might have triggered it for this one. It might have triggered as well for.
Yeah, like I can't recall on top of my head right now, but there were occasions where, say for example, for the same task or like the same step, we did receive maybe 2 or 3 notifications. So maybe a bit of back and forth were like taking place at that time. So instead of like updating 3 tickets separately, we kind of merged them as we usually do. But yeah, like I initially didn't understand why is it showing like cannot continue due to like the child workflow encountering a problem, but then the message in itself says that placeholder was created. So I was kind of a bit confused. So thank you.
Yeah, no worries. So that's those external workflows are usually waiting for a response, basically. Because it sends it, so delegate some work to be done in another workflow. And when that workflow is completed, they should receive a response to say, this is completed, you can carry on. So that's why you're getting two Zendesk tickets created, one for the connector that failed in the external workflow, and then one for this one here that never received the response and then raises it as an issue. But those are the same, this is the same root cause.
Right.
Okay, so this one is a bit more complicated, obviously, because we have to switch between
The workflow.
workflows. So yes, that's a bit more complex. Any question on this one? Does it make sense?
Yep. Guys, any questions from
All
my
good.
side? I guess I'm good.
All good.
Yeah.
All good from my side.
I think we will just have to refer to our recording here so that we don't miss out on these steps in the future tickets that we receive.
Yeah, no, I mean, still, if you've got a question or you're unsure, still ask me again. And I can also make it a bit more interactive just to show you exactly how I go and check.
Yep, absolutely.
And last one that
Yep.
I have, I think it's something a bit more recent.
I wonder if this concerns the 404. I think, yes, this one. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was totally baffled by this one. I didn't know what to do.
Yeah, no worries. So widen, again, we're in the widen workflow. So this is likely going to be done with widen, and then it fails on this step, which is the widen connector.
Right.
And then here we can see basically it's just trying to find this asset based on the asset ID, which is NA, non-applicable,
Right.
and basically just telling us that they can't find it.
Right.
So that crashes. So that just means that basically the value in welcome is incorrect, and this is not handled by the tray workflow.
Right.
So
So Niels, if we expand on that section, the output section,
yeah.
does that give us, okay, so it doesn't exactly give us like the detail on the exact step that we are looking at. I think we will have to go to the step above or something like that, correct?
What do you mean?
Yeah, like the external
Oh.
workflow title and the step.
The step in welcome, yeah.
Right, yes.
So you would just come here all the way at the top, the trigger.
Okay, all right.
And then if you scroll down, you have it here.
Ah, yes, sorry. Yeah, I forgot.
No, that's fine.
Widen upload, right.
Yeah, and here as well, if you go here, you have access to the task directly by pasting this
right. Yeah.
into the browser.
Yep. Yeah, that's the bit I missed out.
Yeah, and here you'll see, because I mean that's information that you wouldn't know, but on our side there was like a field for which we had a similar behavior that we took into account in the workflows, where sometimes there could be a value missing, and we put NA, and the workflow would deal with this. But it seems like in this case, for widen, this is not the case. So I think it's probably someone that got confused and put in the wrong field.
Right.
But that's what we have here.
Ah, okay.
Because see, we've got loads of different custom fields. We've got like Viva ID, widen ID, and there's like loads of different things.
Right.
I don't think we ever expect to have a non-applicable for widen.
Right.
And so that's why it's crashing, because that use case is not handled by Tray.
Right.
So again, nothing to be done on the welcome side. It's more a fact of raising it.
Right. In terms of their, so I'm pretty sure this requires like broader discussion, but in a nutshell, Niels, if you had to summarize, like what is the exact purpose for which, like, say for example, they use Viva, Widen, and Sitecore in conjunction with each other, like through Tray? Like, do they have like different use cases for that, or like are they similar in nature? Like, consider us as noobs basically, and just like share your thoughts.
Okay. So that was my question at the beginning, but that's great. We've got 5 minutes, I can run through this. I think that was question on the context of how all the integrations are being run.
Right.
All right, so let me see if I can just find one. Actually, let me go through. So two main sets of workflows, the web pages and the assets one, okay?
Right.
So if I get an asset one,
That's Viva, I guess.
yeah, so we have Viva.
Okay.
So if I go here, so we've got the first step in create. When we create a new asset, we have like a auto create Viva placeholder, which is the next step. And this one, really the goal of this is that to pre-create the asset in Viva. And the whole goal for this is to be able to retrieve a Viva ID.
Okay.
So the user would just provide like with the title of the asset, it will pre-create a placeholder. So there's no actual asset being sent. It's literally, I create the placeholder in Viva, retrieve the ID and bring it back into the task.
Right.
Background is that they need that ID sometimes to put it in the asset itself. So they need to have it earlier. So that's the whole goal of this placeholder. And that's only available on creation of new assets. If we do an update, it won't be part of the workflow.
Okay.
And then if we carry on forward, the next one will be the get Viva approval. So once the asset has been fully created and is ready for review, they send it to Viva, which is their legal and regulatory approval tool. So it goes like to legal people and people that check that they won't get into trouble, basically. They publish this. And that's when we do the handoff. So it would stay open on that step in welcome, while in Viva, it goes through an approval process, which can take weeks. Once as this is moving throughout this workflow in Viva, there will be updates that are being sent to welcome in the status. That could be, this is in approval, this has been rejected, whatever it is. And if there is a need for an update, it will be explained in the status in welcome of that get approval, Viva approval step. But once the asset is fully approved in Viva, it will also send back that status in welcome saying it's been approved and ready to be published, and will automatically close that Viva approval step. And as soon as this is done, this is fully approved, it will be automatically uploaded to Widen. Widen is their DAM.
Okay. Oh, wow.
So they're just storing it there. And so the issue we had here is that as part of this Widen upload, this is a brand new asset and we don't have an ID. It will just create it in Widen and will retrieve the ID and bring it back into welcome.
Okay.
Then that will close the workflow. And if we go into the next type, so that's what we have for create, 2 Viva and 1 Widen. And then if we look at the updates, we don't have the placeholder, because what they would do, they would copy the create workflow and start an update workflow. And what that would do is that it will bring all the custom fields, all the values. So like the Widen ID, the Viva ID, everything. So that's this is how they kind of match it with Viva and Widen. And so in this update, we don't have the placeholder because we have an ID already. That was retrieved from the create. Then we go through the Viva approval, same process as for create, exact same steps. As soon as it's fully approved, the changes have been fully approved, it will again auto upload into Widen. And at this stage, as there is already an asset that exists in Widen, this is where we would use that Widen ID to make sure we update the existing asset in Widen and we don't create a duplicate.
Right.
That's all baked into the tray workflow. So there's no difference in the type of external step. It's the same thing. The workflow will differentiate if there is an ID provided or not, and do the required actions. So that's for the updates. So Viva approval and Widen upload. And then if we come back, the last one is the retire. Which at the bottom. Retire existing assets. That one is literally just a retire. Oh, sorry, there's Widen as well. So there's the withdraw document Viva. So we cannot do a handoff as well. they provide the Viva ID. We send them off to Viva to go and withdraw it in Viva, which is their solution where they like the place of truth really for the status of documents. Once they have removed it from Viva, we bring back the information to confirm, yes, it has been withdrawn in Viva. And then that will automatically trigger the what we call unrelease, which is literally depublish in Widen. So it's like hide it in Widen, archive it.
Right.
Again, based on the Widen ID that we have from the previous create or update task.
So, right. So if, for example, Niels, they decide that if something was retired, but they might want to bring it back or resurface it again, do they have to go through another workflow and process again, or like admins can do it from Widen side natively?
No, I mean, the idea is that everything will be done through here. So bringing it back, I think it's a use case that they haven't covered yet in the workflows.
Okay, okay. Got it.
Because I think it's quite rare. But I think this was part of some of the improvement they wanted to bring, being able to bring back an asset that was retired in Viva.
Right.
So that's for asset, and then the other use cases are for web pages. So if you create web page, or is it?
I think it's new web page, right? Right below. This one? Or,
New web page, yeah, that's it. So here we create a placeholder because web pages will have to be approved in Viva as well.
okay.
So same thing, we create a placeholder. Here, this is then passed on to Sitecore, like handoff, where the build happen in Sitecore. And as part of this, they will return the information about the Sitecore page and also a preview, like a PDF file. That PDF file will be then, so here, they will create it manually actually. And that PDF file is what is sent to Viva, so it's the Viva approval, same as with an asset, same principle. And once this is completed, it will automatically go back to a Sitecore step so they can publish it. There is no Widen for web pages.
Right.
So that's the difference. We've got Sitecore instead of Widen.
Right.
So that pretty much, then you've got like the update and the retire, but it's the same principle really, where it's a handoff between Viva and Sitecore.
So for web pages, Niels, we have, I don't think we have like any sort of separate ID, right? Like for asset approvals, we do have IDs, but for web pages, like we don't track something like that, correct?
We do. So that would be, was it this one? Yes, Sitecore.
Oh, okay. Item ID, right. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Right.
And so that will only be available on Sitecore workflows. Yeah. All right.
Yep. My electricity just went off, so I will just switch to mobile data. Just bear with me.
Yeah, no worries. So in terms of, this is the background, all the workflows that will be run are the ones we just saw. So I think that helps a bit with the context of what is happening in each of those steps. And then as you've seen, it's just like the best way is to find where the issue is and then go back up to the previous step if you don't have an answer straight away, to figure out what is missing. And then having a look as well in the task itself, just to confirm if this is like, a wrong value being provided or someone that synced it. Like we've seen as well, like with the previous user, if you look at the time step in tray, we can look at what were the actions that were done in welcome. Right. And that's where you could see, for example, the user completing a step and syncing it almost at the same time, which is often a cause for issues, things like this.
Yeah, like I think this particular training session will really help us to troubleshoot tray issues more effectively. And yeah, we didn't have like proper knowledge when it comes to the nitty-gritty side of things. Like obviously in the UI you are going through the steps and whatnot, but like the intricate steps of debugging, there are a few things I think we might have missed out on earlier. So hopefully like from the next ticket onwards, we would have more context as to what should be done here. Thanks so much, Niels, for taking the time to go through all these examples. Guys, any questions from your end?
No, all good from my side, but I hope we will get more questions like when we will solve the tray issues, and like we will reach out to Niels and you, of course.
Yeah, dude, don't stop. Like if you're still stuck, let me know, okay? I know this is a lot to pick up, and it will become easier as we go forward. So.
Right.
Oh, good.
Awesome then.
Cool.
Yeah, I guess we can call it a day. Thank you so much again, Niels. We will be in touch.
My pleasure. Thanks, guys.
Take care. Bye.
Take care.
Yeah.